You're listening to the Outer Banks This Week podcast, a place for people to hear what's going on up and down the beach and to get the truth about what really goes on around the Outer Banks. So, are you ready? Here we go.
All right, thank you so much, Wes. Outer Banks This Week podcast, episode 109, and it's all brought to you by Outer Banks Pest Control right there in Manio. Hey, they were at my house the other day, and let me tell you, very professional, very well-spoken. They don't hesitate to get down and get dirty, to go under your house to look for any sort of varmint infestation, looking for roaches, beetles, bugs, creepy crawlies, all that other fun stuff. They're not afraid to get down and get dirty. I know this because the gentleman that was at my house the other day, and Lord, I can't think of his name to save my life, he went down under there, crawled around, and he let me know about a couple of things that he noticed that I will be addressing in the near future. I appreciate the heck out of Outer Banks Pest Control. They're on top of their game. Very professional. My friend Amanda that works in the office there, so professional. Love her so much. And Jesse, the manages, runs the whole show. Fantastic person. One of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. Very wonderful people there at Outer Banks Pest Control. Check them out online at outerbanks-pestcontrol.com. And it's all powered by, you got to have something to power this engine. And who better than Kelly Midget over at Kelly's Automotive in Manio. If it has doors, it can be yours. He's got some of the most powerful vehicles on his lot. I know, because I ride by there at least twice a day, sometimes like 3 or 4 times a day, maybe 5 times depending on my whereabouts. But Kelly Midget got it going on over there at Kelly's Automotive in Manio. Check him out online at kellysobxauto.com. Woo, we have made it to April. And things are looking nice around here. Temperatures are starting to even out. We're looking at more temperatures these days in the upper 50s, low 60s. We've had a few days where it's been like mid 70s, pushing 80 degrees already. Nice. The only thing that stinks is the pollen. The pollen is blossomed. What's the word there? The spores have been released into the atmosphere. And let me tell you, it's for some of us, I'm okay. I kind of have my coughing, kind of sneezy fits from pollen first thing in the morning. The rest of the day, I'm okay. But for others, it's pretty intense. But hey, look, tis the season. We should be ready for it regardless. It's coming, okay? It's just irritating and annoying because there's days where it's like the sun's out, beautiful outside. You want to throw your windows open and be like, the fresh air coming through my house. And then you can't because next thing you know, you have a yellow film all over your furniture. So yeah, but the weather is getting beautiful around here. They say April showers bring May flowers. I'm not mad at a couple of raindrops here and there to wash this pollen away. But look, it's been sunshine and beautiful here the last, I can't even remember really the last time we had a good soaking. And I'm not talking like a sprinkle for a few minutes because we've had those, but I'm talking like a good deluge downpour. It's been probably since the first part of March. In March, it was definitely in like a lion and out like a lamb, as they say, okay? We're here in April. The weather's looking good. Things are starting to open up here on the Outer Banks. I saw we're Tail of the Whales opening soon, right there on the Manio-Nagshead Causeway. Just places are starting to open their doors, and it's really shaping up to be a great 2025. I can feel it in my bones. This year is going to be a fantastic year. For most things here on the Outer Banks, I'm looking at my March Madness bracket. I was doing great. I had all of my Elite Eight. Every team I had in the Elite Eight was there, okay? Every one of them. Then all of a sudden, Michigan State, and who was my other one? Michigan State and Tennessee decide that they're going to lose in their Elite Eight games, and they don't make it to the Final Four. 2 of my Final Four made it, okay? Duke and Florida, they made it. Me being a Carolina fan, it was hard to pick Duke. I'm pulling against them every game, but I picked them. So, but the thing is, I don't have any money tied up in this. It's not like I was on any of those sports betting websites and throwing money down on the line. I wasn't doing any of that. So for me, it's like, you know what? I'm in this for the pure sport of it this year. I just want to see who does what. And again, I picked Duke to win the national championship. Don't tell anybody I did that. But I still hope that they lose to, who are they playing? Auburn? I can't even remember who they're playing. I think it is Auburn. I hope they lose to Auburn. Just saying. You know what I mean? And then if they beat Auburn and they go, and I got them lined up to play Florida in the national championship, I hope Florida beats them. Just saying. But again, that's whatever. I mean, it's March Madness / April Madness. Lots of things to look forward to in April. Hey, baseball season started, not just here on the local level, which we've got some great teams, a great season already started so far, had a great opening day weekend. But my Atlanta Braves are not doing so good already. 0-5 to start the year. Oh, please, Lord, don't let this be the season where they just tank, where they've been like projected to be this phenomenal team, you know, one of the best teams in the National League, projected to go to the playoffs, all this other kind of stuff, and then bomb. Like, they're 0-5 at the time of the recording of this podcast. All right. They've been on the West Coast, though, so I blame it on that. Personally, they started out with San Diego. Now they're in Los Angeles. They need to get home and get back to Atlanta where they belong, and then they can start their journey back to the postseason. I will say, though, if history's an indicator, back in 2021 when they won the World Series, they started the season 0-4. Yeah, they won the World Series. Hey, I believe in history repeating itself. So, you know, I'm just trying to stay optimistic here, even though my team's 0-5. Oh, anyway, hey, April, though, like I said, lots of great things happening in April. We've got lots of great events coming up this month that you're going to want to really go and take a look at online at OuterBanksThisWeek.com. WrestleMania's this month. You know me, I'm a wrestling freak. I love my WWE. So, of course, WrestleMania is on the horizon. Really looking forward to that. I'm actually taking my family on a little mini vacay for spring break this year, where the schools have spring break. I'm going to be getting out of town for a few days. Really looking forward to that. I'm going to be having the individuals, Mr. Mac and Mr. Jeff from Sea Chef Dockside Kitchen. They're going to be in here in a little bit to talk about the restaurant, talk about their history leading up to opening the restaurant. It's a great story. Great story. They have great storytellers. Okay, for sure. So you're going to want to pay attention to that and hear about what they have to say and how they've really embraced the culture around here. We'll be talking to them in just a little bit. But they got an event coming up at the Fishing Center. I think it's the 28th. I think that's right. The 27th. I'm going to let them tell you. Regardless, lots of fun things coming up in the month of April. Hey, I do appreciate Mr. Jason and Miss Brianna being on the show last week with Sports Zone Hobbies and Brianna's Closet. Now, if you listened, I don't know what was going on there. I had a few technical difficulties that I didn't even know were happening. So I was trying to troubleshoot them when I was editing the podcast last week, and I don't know that I got it all, so I may have to revisit them and do this over. So I apologize to them in case there was some popping and clicking that just didn't sound right. You know, I don't know what happened there. I'm going to have to do a little extra troubleshooting on that. But hey, look, I appreciate those guys. If you get a chance, they're right there on Gallery Road. What is it, East Driftwood in Nags Head, across from the bowling alley. The street's pretty much across from TW's. In Nags Head, okay? If you know where TW's is, close to the bowling alley, close to Staples, in that area, East Driftwood's right over there. Go check them out. If you're a sports card enthusiast like I am, I love my baseball cards, go by there and check them out. You'll probably find something. And they have a lot of graded things, which is important to people that in the sports card collecting world. So I'll probably stop by and pay them a visit again in the near future and end up dropping quite a bit of money. Yeah, it's just... I'm going to try not to, but like, it's just, I'll see a card, I'm like, God, I need that. And then here goes $50 out, you know, I don't want to say out the window because it's an investment to me, but it's just $50 that I don't need to spend right now, that sort of thing. So I appreciate them being on the podcast last week, and I'll be getting up with them again in the near future. Trying to think, anything news? No, nothing that's just jumping out at me. Sam Walker keeps me up to speed fairly well. SamWalkerOBX.com is where you can find all the local news that you can fathom. If you have questions about the news, Sam Walker is the answer. He's the Grand Slam. Woo! Sam Walker, SamWalkerOBXNews.com. Hey, it's Captain Marty season here for us at Outer Banks this week. And of course, I'm out on the streets talking to everybody about the captain. You want to be a part of the captain? You want to be in the Captain Marty Fishing Guide? You want to have a spot in his fishing report? Let me know. Justin at OuterBanksThisWeek.com. It's Justin at OuterBanksThisWeek.com. All right, quick break. When we come back, I'm going to give a couple shout outs. But before we do that, hey, you looking to do a little fishing, as we just talked about the captain, look no further than Rigged Up Sport Fishing. It's time to get rigged up to go fishing, and at Rigged Up Sport Fishing Charters out of the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, that's exactly what they do best. This 55-foot Omi Tillet-built boat with that Carolina flair, known for tournament wins, is fully equipped with the latest sonar technology, along with two of the most knowledgeable captain-mate combos in the fleet that practically know what the fish are thinking. Hop aboard with them today by going online at riggedupcharters.com. Rigged Up Sport Fishing Charters. Let's go fishing! All right, it's time to jump into some shout-outs. And again, if you're a listener to the podcast, let me know. Justin at OuterBanksThisWeek.com. It's Justin at OuterBanksThisWeek.com. Got two shout-outs I want to give. I want to start with giving a shout-out to a newly opened restaurant on the Outer Banks. It's called Shaka's. Shaka's, I went in there and ate the other day, and I enjoyed everything I had. There wasn't anything that I didn't like on their menu. I enjoyed every little thing that I had. They had some good Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. I had the short rib grilled cheese. The fries were good. And I love how they do their fries there. They don't just like dust it with some like garlic salt or anything like that. Like they use like cloved garlic and chopped up like minced garlic on their fries. Yeah, you probably don't want to go and talk to anybody after that. But I mean, it was good. Food was great. I'm actually taking my wife back there for a date night this coming Friday night. So I enjoyed every bit of it. It was very good to me, and I look forward to going back. The atmosphere, just the decor, it's a wonderful spot. I can tell it's going to do very well where it is, and I'm really excited to take my wife there this Friday night. We're having a date night, and it's just, yes, I can't wait. So I wanted to give them a quick little shout out. If you get a chance, there were Mahi Mahis used to be across from Staples, kind of in that same area where close to Sports Zone Sports Zone Hobbies. They're right in there. Okay. So again, right across from the bowling alley pretty much is Shaka's. It's the old Mahi Mahis, just to give you a reference point. I'm going to stop saying that soon because they're not Mahis anymore. They're Shaka's. All right. It's like Francisco. I like saying that. Shaka's. Shaka's. Sorry. It just sounds cool. That was my first shout out. My second shout out is it came my way the other day. I came into church and I saw my mom, and of course I walk over to speak to my mother, and my mother said she saw my cousin, Billy Murray Cudworth. Yes, Billy Murray. He lives out in Raleigh. He does a little bit of long distance driving these days, and she said that he listens to the podcast and that he loves listening to it. Now, some of you may remember BC and the Dreadnecks. Yeah, reggae group here locally for a while. Yeah, BC, that is my cousin. Yeah, my cousin. Yeah, I'm kin to that guy. That's right. Be jealous. It's cool. You can be jealous. But she told me he listened to the podcast, and I was like, all right, he's going on my shout-out list. So Billy Murray, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. I need to see you. All right? So next time you're in town, you need to let me know. I appreciate you listening to the podcast and showing me some love and support, for real. Really, really appreciate that. All right, we're going to take another quick break. Then we're going to talk to our friends from Sea Chef Dockside Kitchen, Chef Jeff Buben and Chef Mac Buben. Yes, indeed. He's a James Beard Award winner is Mr. Jeff, all right? I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm going to get him to kind of clarify that for me in just a little bit, but we're going to talk to them in just a few minutes. But first, hey, looking for a place to stay here locally on the Outer Banks? You're not sure about your real estate company that you're using right now? Hey, talk to my friends Brooke and Heather over at Coast Realty in Nags Head.
Coast Realty in Nags Head is your full-service vacation rental management company where guests become family. Born and raised in the Outer Banks, Brooke Sparks and Heather Cater bring over 40 years of combined property management experience to the table and are known to go above and beyond to ensure that your beach vacation will never be forgotten. When you choose to book your vacation with Coast Realty, you are choosing to work with the best local experts. Whether it's a simple getaway for just the two of you or the whole family, Coast Realty can easily accommodate. To see their properties and to book your piece of paradise, go online to coastrealtync.com. Coast Realty, we do the hard work so you can coast.
All right, here we are. As I promised, I've got award-winning. Give me the title of that word again, Mr. Jeff. I always mess it up.
Okay, it's James Beard
Beard Award.
Yeah.
Okay,
Best Chef Mid-Atlantic. But that was 30 years ago.
Still, it was an award you earned nonetheless. So I've got Mr. Jeff and Chef Jeff and Chef Mac Buben from Sea Chef Dockside Kitchen out of the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Doing well. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, we're excited to do our first podcast and kind of introduce ourselves and tell a little bit about what we're about and what we do.
Well, that's exactly why we're here, because I've been to the Sea Chef. I've enjoyed everything I've ever gotten from there. And I want, you wrapped up your first year. We're going into our second year. And I want people to kind of know, or not kind of know, I want them to know all about Sea Chef down at the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, how the fishing center has been revamped. Anybody that hasn't been in a while, hasn't seen the new Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, and all that it holds, specifically Sea Chef. But I want to start from the beginning, and I want to go back in time a little bit, because I want to hear a little bit more about you guys. Before we bring it up to speed, let's talk a little bit about the James Beard award-winning Chef Jeff.
Okay, that's the last time we're going to say that.
Okay,
one.
I'm sorry.
Right?
All right, I apologize. We won't say that again.
I came here to be in the witness protection program.
Oh,
so
excuse me. Well, we're protecting you. We're going to change your name real quick. So talk to me a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up just outside of Philadelphia. I've been in the restaurant business my whole life. Typical story. Poor student in school, and what are you going to do with your life? So, okay, I'll go into the restaurant business, and that changed my life a lot. Gave me a sense of purpose and gave me a direction, and realized that I was good at it, and it was something that I really enjoyed. And I, since that day back in high school, I don't think I've ever felt like I've gone to work a day in my life.
That's easy. That's amazing.
So. That's how it started. Went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park. Graduated in the late 70s, mid-late 70s. And, the restaurant business was quite different then. My parents didn't understand what we were, what I wanted to do. And, things were about, you're going to be a cook, what's a chef? And at that time, there was a movement, with the Nouvelle cuisine and the modern French cuisine in France, with Paul Bocuse being the godfather of that. That kind of came to the States, and that was the first time I showed my parents, here, this is what I want to aspire to be. I want to be like Paul Bocuse. That's what every chef, every cook in my generation wanted to be. And so it was a different time. Resources were not what they are today. The world was, a much smaller place, where information came from and how things got disseminated. And a lot of it was based on what was happening in France at the time. And that's what everybody aspired to do. So I went to, after graduation, went to New York to work. That was the place to work. If you wanted to get the chops and be involved with French cooking in the French restaurants at the time. Then got to the point of, met my wife and decided that New York wasn't the place we wanted to raise a family. So she was from High Point, North Carolina.
Oh, very cool.
And I kind of grew up, my mother was from North Carolina. So I spent some time in North Carolina as a kid and really loved the culture of the South. And so we decided to move. I wasn't going to High Point, and she wasn't staying in New York. So we said, okay, Washington, D.C. will be right in the middle. And we settled there, raised a family, had 4 restaurants in Washington, D.C. over 44 years. And so 30 years ago, so how do we get here a little quicker? How do we get here? 30 years ago, my goal, we had started coming to the Outer Banks, when the kids were little, and we enjoyed fishing here and we enjoyed everything about it. And my goal was, I said, well, one day I want to have a little fish shack in the Outer Banks as my retirement. That's my dream retirement job.
Oh man!
So, in pursuing that, we always realize is you need to be an operator, an on-site operator. It's very difficult to operate a restaurant if you're not in the middle of. At least that's how my career went. That I never felt comfortable, not being there and making everybody miserable every day. With that. So we our goal was in 2023, all our leases would be up in Washington, D.C. My wife and I would both have turned 65, and we said, okay, we'll make an assessment at that point in our life whether we want to continue in D.C. We'll see what the climate is. We'll see what before we take on any more exposure there, and we'll decide what we want to do in our life and where we were. So COVID kind of, supercharged that idea and changed the landscape of Washington, D.C. And Mac had moved here in December of 19. He was working for me, so he'll tell his story. But how we got together was he said, "Well, I'm moving to the Outer Banks," and I said, "Why don't you just choose a more difficult place in the world to be in the restaurant business?" I said, "I've watched it for the last 30 years, and it's difficult. I mean, these guys, the operators here, it's seasonal. There's a lot to it. It's a totally different dynamic than anything that you've trained for or exposed yourself to." So I said, "Well, there's only one person that I thought would be." I said, "Well, go talk to Sam McGann, who I had known for quite some time." And I said, "He's the person to work for there, and I think that's what go see what it's all about." So he went there, and COVID hit. A funny story about COVID was the week before COVID, a couple of days, I was going to the farmers market, 5 times a week for the restaurants and buying a tremendous amount of produce for the vegetables, and I would go and collect them and then disseminate them out to the restaurants. And I had just gone to the market on Sunday and had a tremendous amount of produce, and all of a sudden the talk about COVID was happening. So I talked to Mac on the phone, and I said, "Listen, before you place your order for tomorrow, you call me." I said, "Because something's happening here that is not normal."
Right.
And I said, "I've got a lot of vegetables that I'm sitting on, a lot of produce from the farms." So I said, "You call me and tell me what your list is." And I said, "I'll bring it down to you if I have to." You know what I'm saying? Because it's just too beautiful to go. So the next day, the mayor shut the city down, and so Mac, I was scheduled to come and leave that night to bring him the vegetables, because I kind of had an inkling that it was going to happen. And so I packed up coolers of all this stuff and brought it in the car. And I had to go and stop because I had to realize what I was going to do with 85 employees now that we're shut down. So my wife got in the car and started bringing it to the Outer Banks to deliver it to Mac. She got to Williamsburg and they shut the bridge down.
I was about to say they shut the bridge down.
Right. So she had to
remember where I was when that happened.
Okay. So that was that's a defining moment for us and Sea Chef and how the whole thing came about. So she turned around and we distributed all the vegetables between neighbors and the staff and everything like that. And so all the people in Washington, all our clientele was calling us and saying, "Hey," they all had houses here in Duck and Corolla and Pine Island and everything. And they were like, "Can you get us a reservation at the Blue Point?" And I said, "No." And this is the fast forward to May after Memorial Day when it opened back up, because they went through the struggle of the same thing that we did.
Not quite as long, yeah.
But they reopened. You all reopened Memorial Day, which was a game changer, and we just got worse and worse with that. So when they reopened, everybody would call me and say, "Can you give me a reservation at the Blue Point?" And I would call them and say, "No, we're booked, and we only have so much capacity." So one day, one of my good customers said, "Do you think your son would do a dinner for us in our house?" I said, "Well, let me ask him." And I called him and he said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, I'm off on Monday or whatever." So we said, "Okay, we'll do it Monday." Set it up. So he did the dinner, and it was like, "Oh, this is an interesting concept." And obviously, not the first to invent it, but it was like, okay. And then they were like, "We want to do this again." And I said, "Well, you obviously had a good experience." So then we booked a couple more, and a few more people were calling me, and I said, "Well, I can't get you into the Blue Point, but I can get you, a private chef." So then I had all employees that I was trying to keep employed at the restaurant, and I would start doing the prep in Washington, and I would put it in coolers and drive it overnight. So I'd leave the restaurant at 11 o'clock at night, drive overnight, sleep at his house for a couple hours, and then we go and do the party at the house the next day. So that's how that's how it started. First, it was once a month, then it was twice a month, then it was once a week, then it was twice a week, then it was like, "Oh, I have a wedding, I have this party, I have that party." And, before long, I said, "Well, okay, I'll help you build the brand, with that, if that's what you want to do, with the catering and private events and everything like that." So we started to build it and then realized that, 300,000 miles later, of traveling back and forth, I said, "Well, we need to look for a brick and mortar." And this is 2020, 2021, 2022. And then all of a sudden our lease was up, and I said, "Okay, my wife and I decided we're gonna just go for it, and sold our house that we lived in for 35 years and moved here, and so the rest is history. But when the fishing center opportunity opened up, we had looked at a lot of opportunities, and we wanted to build our own brand. Sea Chef. That was the idea. Was let's build this brand as opposed to taking over somebody else's restaurant. That's really not what we had in mind with that, and we didn't really want to do a traditional restaurant. I had kind of no real inclination to take on 50 employees and start all over again with that. I was. So that wasn't in my cards. But when the fishing center came along, it was like a dream come true. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is this opportunity. And we started to talk to them and went, about what their idea for it was and what their vision was. And we shared the same vision about what we wanted, what it could be and what we wanted to be and where it had come from. And it really has been a tremendous blessing to do it. And, I couldn't, I'm having so much fun,
Well, you look like you're having fun. I've stuck my head in the kitchen a couple times when I've been there, and you've been back there, and I mean, you look like you're having a ball back there.
I'm the best spot washer on the Outer Banks.
most overqualified spot washer on the Outer Banks.
Well, enter, I guess, Mr. Mack now, and Mr. Mack now. You obviously fell right in your daddy's footsteps in a lot of ways, and you went
not really.
Not really. Oh, rewind. Mr. Mack, tell me your story.
Well, his best advice to me when I got started cooking professionally was to go work for other people, and specifically to make mistakes on somebody else's dime. Okay. So that was actually that line got me hired at my first big boy job in New York.
No kidding.
The Jean-Francois, the chef there at Danielle, said to me, why you want to come work here? Why do you not want to go work for your dad?
He said because I've heard all the stories.
Because I've heard all the stories.
So I said because he wants me to go make mistakes on somebody else's dime. So he laughed at that and said, "Okay, come to work tomorrow." That's the reality of it, though, is that I wasn't born with any kind of pedigree or any innate natural talent. I've never felt like that.
Okay.
I got started cooking at Magnolia Grill in Durham when I was at school at NC State.
Okay.
And kind of looked around me, and everybody was pretty good at their job and professional, and it was a great place to get started and learn how to dice an onion.
No, let me ask you this now. Did you, growing up, with your dad having the restaurants and everything like that, is that something that, did you aspire to want to be a chef?
A little bit, until I kind of really saw what the hours were like, and I kind of transitioned to wanting to be as far away from that as possible at one point. So I went to school. I was in the agriculture department studying how to grow turf grass for.
He majored in fraternity.
Yeah.
Majored in fraternity.
We had a good time back in Raleigh. And, the best decision I ever made, though, was, taking my part-time job there at Magnolia Grill and going off to culinary school.
Okay.
And so in that sense, I did follow in his footsteps a little bit. He said, okay, if you're going to be serious about it, here's the roadmap to success. And it was go to CIA. No hate on any other culinary schools there, but
right.
To me, it's the best training possible. You get exposed to so many things in such a quick period of time. It brought me up to speed as somebody who didn't grow up in a family restaurant. His places in DC were, first of all the way in DC. It wasn't right around the corner,
right.
and they weren't really family restaurants. It was fine dining, huge amount of employees. So I'd go there and mess around, but it wasn't really something I was like, okay, I'm born for this. This is what I'm always going to do. So It was kind of a later change for me, actually.
Okay.
And, taking his advice, I spent my weekends in school going down to New York City, working for free in restaurants on the weekends, and eventually settling in there for almost 4 years, a little over 4 years, working at Danielle, Le Bernardin, and Jean-Georges, just kind of making my way around the circuit of what I thought were the best restaurants, knowing kind of always that it was you can go learn at these places. You don't have to get into fine dining. You can always learn at the highest level and then do what you're passionate about. The same kind of thing happened with people that were doing food trucks for a long time. You had a lot of these chefs like making exodus from fine dining kitchens to food trucks. So for me, I'm kind of like you. Like, I love barbecue.
Oh, I love barbecue.
I remember I remember our family trips as a kid, like spring break. We'd all pack into the car and drive throughout Eastern North Carolina and eat barbecue.
Nice.
And
that's a good vacation.
Right.
That's an awesome vacation.
So I love to eat barbecue. I love to hunt and fish and, eat seafood. And for me, in the back of my mind, I always knew that, fine dining wasn't necessarily what I wanted to go into business, to do. I love the restaurant business. I love fine dining. But what we're doing now is kind of, I couldn't have told you 10 years ago that's where we'd be, but I know now that's where I should be.
Right.
And, I made the decision to move down here because my wife is from Virginia Beach. We wanted to be closer to family. Like I said, we lived in New York for 4 or 5 years, lived out in rural Virginia for a little bit, worked with my dad in the same year that we got married. I did a pop-up restaurant in Reykjavik, Iceland. We did a culinary competition in Las Vegas. It was a busy time. And when we came around to want to start a family, we kind of looked at the map and I said, this is where I want to be. I want to be in the Outer Banks to raise a family. Kind of
the same way with my wife and we're living in New York, and she said, I don't want to raise a family in New York. I said, I don't want to raise a family in High Point. Culinary wise, it wasn't a fit, and we kind of met in the middle. And I think, when he first told me he was going to the Outer Banks, I kind of got it, but I said, well, Thanksgiving is going to be a little rough there, just because of all the investment that you put in. And then when he got here, I realized that he was serious about what he wanted to do here and why he wanted to be here, the sense of family and raising a family here. And then all of a sudden I started to get it. When I was coming down, I was looking at it from a different perspective of that. And I said, you know what, maybe the way I did it isn't the only way to to do it. But, I think that the important thing here for operating a restaurant is you have to be present.
Amen.
And I think that's where they're all local restaurants, and there's a tremendous sense of pride that everybody has in their restaurants, and that changed my perspective of, okay, I can see this happening, and I was ready to make a transition too. I didn't need to do any more fine dining. I didn't need to do another restaurant to prove what I was doing or how to look at it that way.
Right.
And my only goal was to help him achieve his goal and his dream.
Well, it seems like we're achieving or have already achieved, because the Sea Chef has been born. It's established 2024. I always say 2004. I always forget the other two. 2024, we opened our doors. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of how we got to opening the doors is kind of funny, because
Let's hear that.
I was doing the private chef thing. We were doing the private chef thing, and obviously that's mostly a peak season idea, right? So come around September, October, when everything starts to transition a little bit, I needed a full-time job. At the time, that wasn't enough to support me. So after buying a lot of oysters from Mr. Bobby Smith there at Savage Inlet Oysters, quick promo for him there.
There you go. Yeah, hey, do it.
I started working with him in the wintertime. And I spent a couple winters working on the oyster lease on the boats and helping him out in the summertime when he was charter fishing full-time as well. And that's kind of how I got my feet wet at Oregon Inlet Fishing Center and started being around there when that new building was going up. And, one day we just kind of happened to get in touch with the King family that's operating the building there and has the lease with the National Park Service. And like my dad said, that we just kind of pitched our concept for the whole thing, and everybody kind of aligned. And the next thing you know, we're opening up a restaurant in the middle of Cape Hatteras National Seashore at Oregon Inlet Fishing Center. It's probably the craziest location to have a restaurant like ours that you could think of. I mean, it's been decades. There was a restaurant there.
Long time ago,
decades ago.
Yeah, you're
a simple little diner. And I just think that we kind of came in there and wanted to have a modern approach to at its core, it's being a part of the fishing center and watching the boats come in.
Right.
And you want to be there just like generations of people have been there to see those beautiful boats come in and unload their catch and work their way into a slip and tie up. It's like a dance to witness. It's really something else. And, we're just a part of that. And we wanted to do great food and have it be of the place of where it's from, being local seafood. And I think so far our vision has worked out for our idea, and
we make a lot less mistakes each month.
Yeah,
I think that's what that.
Sometimes I just got to pinch myself that like we're there at Oregon Inlet because it's a special place to so many people, including myself. I mean, in our family, I have so many memories of offshore fishing there with greats of Oregon Inlet with Harry Baum and all these people that go. I fished there on charter boats from when I was a little kid, and on our own boat, and trying to do it ourselves, and obviously not as good as the guys that do it every day. But it's fun to try and think you can. But it's really tough to hang with those guys. They're the best at what they do.
Right.
So yeah, you just got to stop and you walk out after a shift, taking the trash out there, and you're just like, dude, we're at the ends of the earth here.
This is my spot.
Well, it's not the end of the earth, but you can see it from there.
You can see it from there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with the weather down there is totally different than the rest of the Outer Banks. There's nobody
You're on
around.
a point pretty much.
Yeah, there's nobody around. You're eight something miles from the closest residence to the north, and you're like 15 to the south.
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, they say location.
Oh yeah. We couldn't have picked a more remote location to try and do something new with that. But their vision, the King family, their vision for it really was when this is what they wanted. What they saw was to create this for another generation and generations to come, and it just meshed. Obviously, Mr. King Sr. He has ties to Washington D.C. and we met in Washington and talked for a long time about what they wanted to accomplish, and it just was like I say, it was pinch me kind of thing. It was like this is the right thing at the right time,
right?
And now to be involved in it, you realize that it's a sense of place and an experience, and that's what we want to. We're helping to steward that along. That it's a part of the Outer Banks that I think a lot of people, a new generation, hasn't seen that come as visitors. With that. And when we were doing the private chef over the last couple of years, primarily with the north end duck and corral and that area, and that's a different experience of and it really opened my eyes to how big the Outer Banks is tremendous breadth of landscape and totality. I mean, it's the difference. It's like going there is that's like going to Baltimore to do a private chef dinner from Washington D.C. and going south that's like going to Richmond. And that's how I put it in perspective for myself when I got there. I was like, you realize that that's an hour away. It's only 32 miles, but it's an hour away.
Yeah, yeah.
No, and you're not going to cut it any differently. But
No.
the generation the new generation that's coming down here, what I saw is they want to see different experience, and they want to see different things while they're here, and not just beach 5 days a week with that. So I think the fishing center and their vision was to create a day trip for people to be able to come and see something really spectacular. And
destination.
Destination and an experience. And there's such a history to the whole thing that I just get amazed talking to people.
Even the people that come through there and they're like, I'm only 33 years old, but you'll have old timer come through there and be like, oh, I remember I worked at the Coast Guard.
Right, we had that.
I worked at the Coast Guard station when it was on the other end.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh, they'll tell me. It's fun for me because I get to hear a story that just adds to the mystique of that location.
That's pretty cool.
And more than not, our customers have some great stories about their memories of the fishing center. But there is a new demographic of people who
Or seeing it for the first time.
and they don't necessarily equate the Outer Banks with its fishing history. You know, both commercial and
You're right.
sport fishing.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, there's books on it. I don't have to make it up. You know, and I like sharing that with
exactly
a unique new guest and say, hey, you know, this is what the Outer Banks is all about. And if you don't see this, then you missed a big part of it.
You know, it's like I said with the boats. He said, you know, the boats they're pieces of art. You know, in that creek. You know, it's more than just a fishing fleet. They're pieces of art, and the captains. You know, it's legendary, and to be able to share that with visitors, you know, and you learn it from your customers that come in, you know, that have lived here and been that, and then to be able to share that with the visitors, especially you get people from landlocked states, they've never seen a fish with a head on it.
No, yeah.
And they're amazed. You know, they're amazed at the whole thing. So, you know, we call it show and tell. You know what I'm saying? So we do, you know, fish cutting, and we do, you know, we have the fish to bring out to them when they ask, like, what's a ribbon fish? You know, the other night we had, or the other day, we were talking about ribbon fish, and, you know, they just packed out ribbon fish, and I went and picked them up that next morning, and we had, you know, really beautiful ribbon fish in there. So we were talking to them about it, and I said, well, let me show you what they were like. What's a ribbon fish? You know, so I told Mac, I said, go get him a ribbon fish and take it out there. So he takes it out into the dining room and shows him a ribbon fish, and is able to talk about the fishing here and where it's caught and how it's caught and who caught it.
Right. That's cool.
And, you know, you talk about, you know, every restaurant wants to have a sense of place. You know, that's what every chef's dream of creating a restaurant is about, you know, a terroir, you know, the idea you're creating a sense of place and you're trying to transport people. You know, you open a French restaurant, you're trying to transport them to Paris, or you're trying to transport them, and the success of a restaurant is usually in how well you can transport your guests to what you're trying to achieve.
No, that's good. I hadn't thought about it like that.
And here, it's just the opposite. We have to catch up.
Huh.
We have to catch up with what's happening because we are the sense of place, and we're really, you know, this year I think I hope we're a little bit better prepared. You know, did a lot of reading, a lot of, you know, collecting a lot of fun facts over the winter to be able to share with people, you know, about the Outer Banks and about the history of the fishing center and that area, and you know, how, you know, everything is by a sense of need that happens here. Most everything that happens here was, you know, through a need, and I think people really enjoy to hear that experience and learn about that, because that's just not something that they get to touch on from where they're from outside this. And when you're in the middle of it, you know, even with the wind blowing 30 knots and you know, taking the trash out some days can make you cry.
Yeah.
You know, it's brutal. But
then you realize
it's like working at Deadwood sometimes there. I mean, it's raw and it's beautiful at the same time, but it's like, couldn't this be a little easier?
Yeah.
and then somebody tells you a story about how they took the bus from Hatteras, drove 3 hours all the way up to the beach just to catch the ferry to get to school. And you're like, you know what? This has always been a hard place for people to exist.
It's been interesting.
Yeah. And it kind of makes it fun. Like when you get through a day like that, you're like, you know, you look out at night and, you know, and the sky is clear and there's no ambient light, and you just have the moon and you know, the glow off the boats and the creek, and you're like, this is a special place.
There you go. Yeah, I'm glad you all have embraced all of that. You know, some people it's just a job. It's just kind of there, you know, whatever. But like y'all have really, I can tell just by the way y'all have described everything, the way everything kind of came about to create Sea Chef. Y'all have really embraced the culture. You've really embraced the atmosphere. You've really embraced the geography. I mean, just the entire landscape of this place. That's beautiful. And people need to understand that. It's like, you know, you didn't just, oh God, I got an opportunity to go and open a restaurant on the Outer Banks. Let's go. Right. No, it's like, hey, we're opening a place that we believe is going to be extra special for you to showcase. And it's like you were just talking about, you know, when you had your restaurants in DC, how your job was to try to transport them in their mind, you know, by what was on their plate to France or whatever the case may be. You're just trying to, hey, this is a taste of the Outer Banks. You're here now. Taste this, taste it. You know, feel
there has
it,
to be
take it in.
authenticity to the whole thing.
Yeah. Yes, and you've done a fantastic job of that over at Sea Chef. So Sea Chef, part of the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, beautiful new building. We opened last year. Last year seemed like it was a pretty solid year for you guys. Every time I looked over there, because I take a lot of trips to Hatteras, look over, the parking lot's jam packed, and you can tell like people are parked down by the slips, and you know they're on the boats, but also like the main parking lot there, it seem like there's people out on the decks enjoying the atmosphere outside, and I mean you've got indoor, outdoor seating. How many seats? Roughly.
Well, we just added some over the winter, so we've got a new counter bar outside.
Okay,
that is probably the best seat in the whole house. It's looking straight down the middle of the creek. Boats.
It's like having box seats behind the dugout.
Yeah, he calls it the dugout seats.
The dugout seats. You're right.
Okay,
they're box. You're right. You're right on top of the action.
Oh, that's so cool.
We've nixed some t-shirt space and traded that for seats, and you know, my biggest agenda and concern of this year is handling the demand.
Okay.
And I'm so thankful for every single person that either makes the extra drive to come down there and eat, or stops in after fishing, or stops in on their way down south. You know, always surprised that people find us.
Yeah,
you know, given where we are.
And we were blessed. We have when we opened, we had no idea how we were going to get people to come down there, and staff, let alone. And we've been blessed with a tremendous staff that's been with us from the beginning. And they bought into the vision,
right?
You know, with that, you know, and that's probably the hardest thing for, as a chef and as employer, you know, Mac, and that is to get your staff to see your vision and work every day at creating that and making that work, and they believe, and they make the effort to be there, and I think that's made all the difference in a successful first year, and I think that's what's going to give us our edge in the second year. The first year was like drinking water through a fire hose. Some days, you know, I mean, it was just, okay, you know, it just was changing every day because we had to adapt to the environment, and you know, you think you know what's going to happen, and then you know the first customer comes in and plan A goes out the window, you know, because people are going to dictate how they perceive the restaurant.
Yeah, and I would say the biggest thing that, you know, when we first conceptualized and when we opened,
oh my gosh,
we were going to be like takeout. We were going to be like down and dirty. Here's your seafood
I think the original menu had four items on there, and it was that's like three too many. I was like, that's three too many.
I think people pull up to that brand new, beautiful building, and then they come in the restaurant, and they're like, they see the view, and they're like, oh, I want to sit here a while and have an appetizer, have a beautifully crafted entree with local seafood, and have a nice glass of wine or orange crush. I mean, yeah, I get really jealous of people sitting outside and eating and having a drink, and I'm like, it's the one restaurant I've ever worked at, or first one I've ever owned.
Yeah.
So that I go out and talk to folks, and I'm like genuinely jealous, and I wish that we could trade seats and I could just hang out.
I could just hang out.
Yeah, because I'd see the look on their faces, and they're so happy. And you know what? The food, a lot of times, especially in the first year, everybody goes, oh, the food's really good. Almost as if it was a surprise. Like, they're like, okay, obviously the view's great, the building's great. They goes, the food's really good. And I said, yeah, well, we want to make, just like the fishing's first class, we want to make the restaurant experience first class experience as well. So it's got to, everything has to sync up there. And you know, we think the world of the fishing center, and we want to operate an establishment in the same manner. That's like, you know, you take care of the boat takes care of you.
Hey,
right.
The same thing with a restaurant.
Hey, it's great analogy there.
Same
like
thing.
that.
So yeah, we listened to a lot of people, and we did paper plates last year.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We were trying to be like really super casual last year, and then we kind of realized everybody wanted more, so we added rare bourbons. We added upped our wine game a little bit. We went to proper silverware and plates. And we said, you know what, if that's what you guys, if that's what people want, give it to them, and we've had to adapt.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
But for the better, because when we first conceptualized the whole thing, it was like, there's no way somebody's going to come to Oregon Inlet, and that's what they're going to want.
We thought it was going to be, we were going to be in the kitchen and at the counter, and it was like, okay, if you're at the counter and you take an order, I'll cook it, and then when I go to pick it up, you go back to the counter and I'll cook the next order. And we thought it was going to be like 2 people in there.
Take out fried shrimp baskets.
Right. And what are we going to do with the rest of the day? Because we just had, when we first went there, when it was being built, it was over the winter time. So it was like, this is pretty desolate down here. There's not a whole, and we're like, are people really going to come? And we were worried about that the first day. We were like, are people really going to come here? Because, it's just, it's not in the center anywhere. And that was our biggest concern. And then, like I say, then it just got to the point of trying to catch up with it. And then everybody, having a different idea of what they wanted out of it. And we listened a lot, and we learned a lot, and we adapted. And I think just that place makes you adapt.
Right.
You have no choice but to adapt to it.
Yes.
Just because
your customers are there already. Yeah. They can't drive 5 minutes down the road to another restaurant. So, you have to kind of honor their patronage and say, okay, well, you're here. Let me give you what you want.
Right.
And I think a big part of that is the authenticity and the effort that we make into what goes on our menu. And, the star of the whole thing is the seafood.
Right.
And we really bust our chops to make that stuff available, because it's not easy. You can't order local seafood here and have it show up at your back door. It's not like that.
Right.
So, it's a lot of extra work to sit there and call fishermen and call the fish houses and stay up to date on weather and coordinate, when they're going to be packing out and what can we use. It's tricky because it's not we use ribbon fish.
You use local fish houses though.
That's right. Yeah. So we
who do you source from?
We use Micah and Matt Huth over there at Fresh Catch.
Very
in
cool.
Wanchese, and we do a lot of business with the O'Neills at O'Neill's Sea Harvest.
Benny O'Neill.
So Fresh Catch is a lot of long line boats,
right?
And drop netting boats. They're all pretty specific in their pelagics, tuna, swordfish, stuff like that. And then they'll have the ribbon fish and croaker and stuff like that in the wintertime when they're drop netting. And then O'Neill's has a little bit more variety. We'll get crabs from there. Mm-hmm. They bring in clams from Beaufort, North Carolina for us.
Oysters,
which also come from Mr. Bobby Smith there at Savage Inlet. And pretty much it's a process of communicating with them on a daily basis to say what boats are fishing, what's the weather like, because that determines when they're going to leave and when they're going to come back.
Right.
Market pricing.
Yep.
Size of fish. And it really takes going down there every other day or so and looking at the floor and saying, okay, there's ribbon fish, but they're of a different size. There's Spanish mackerel, but okay, there's you have to make a decision based on what you need. But we've kind of left our menu open ended in a way where nothing's set in stone as far as fish.
Right.
That's tuna, quite different than if we had a traditional restaurant where we had to have a larger menu and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a major. Like I had to rewire my brain for that idea, and Mac's vision, has taught me a lot, and he's like, because I would scratch my head in the beginning and go,
it's so much work.
How is this going to work? How is it, how are we going to do this? And he's like, trust me, I have an idea and I have a plan in mind, and I just kind of followed along, and I'm the guy that goes, I go to Stumpy Point to pick up the shrimp. And I get to go to Fresh Catch and
that's his retirement plan.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, okay, I'm in, because this is what I had in mind. You know,
Well, there's no produce here really. There's not a farmer's market, per se. You know, so we have to make the seafood to start the whole thing, and it's finicky of when you're going to get stuff, and it can be a lot of work at times. It can be a real headache, but we feel good about what we're supporting and the integrity of our menu. I spent a lot of my time here before opening the restaurant to kind of learn about commercial fishing, going on boats with people, and just observing, being the annoying guy on the dock who's just asking questions and poking their nose inside the fish house, and just I mean there's no other way to do it. I mean, I've heard back in the day there used to be people going up and down the beach and they'd sell to the back doors of restaurants, and it doesn't really happen so much anymore.
Can't do that anymore, not exactly.
No, and so it takes a lot of coordination. It takes a lot of last minute of they just landed 20 boxes of ribbon fish. It's 11:30. I know we're in the middle of lunch, but can you go down there and get it?
Right.
It's a little helter skelter sometimes.
Yeah.
But you're just not going to accomplish the local seafood thing if you're not kind of working like that. That's the way I see it. I mean, it's good. It's coolers in the back of our trucks, carrying shrimp, carrying crabs.
Yep.
I'd say the only thing that comes to our back door is Bobby dropping off oysters. because he's water to cooler.
Yep.
In 10 minutes or less, and it really just doesn't get much better than that.
That doesn't scream fresh.
Yeah. So and we've got that whole. You've seen the setup at the back of the restaurant where we've got the killer dock cutting table.
Yep.
The cooler out there. I've got a North Carolina Marine Fisheries fish dealer license, so we can buy directly off of the boats.
See, that's killer.
And the customers love seeing the fish come up the back stairs and go onto that cutting table. I'm sure some people don't love seeing the sausage get made, but that's what we do. We cut fish.
The kids love it. The kids absolutely love it.
And someone from Ohio has never seen a red drum before.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fantastic. That's part of the experience that they're going to get at Sea Chef, and a whole part of the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center is the fish coming up the back. I mean,
it's a circus. The whole thing is a circus.
It's a circus.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, at any given time, you've got the party getting off the boat. They just been offshore all day. And then you got the dock hands coming down to grab their fish, to go cut it. They're coming up to the restaurant, going shopping in Oceans East. Like, there's so many things going on.
People coming from the campground. They're our best customers. They walk across the street, happy hour. They come across for dinner, and we're their local restaurant. With that, which I would have never thought in my wildest dream that would ever be part of, what I was involved in. And like I said, I love every minute of what happens there, because none of it's predictable, Well, and it moves, and it expands, and it contracts, and
changes with the tide.
Exactly. And I get up in the morning. The first two things I have to do is check the wind and check the radar. That's
it's gonna dictate the ebb and flow of the restaurant.
It really does. We're back to the seats thing. We're at about 110 seats now.
Yeah,
I think 60-70% of that's outside.
Outside, right?
So you could have somebody. They come down there to sit outside, sit next to the water. You could have an empty dining room, and somebody will wait an hour just to have a table outside. Because and if it's windy or it's raining, a different story. But we're very weather driven. When the weather's nice, the boats go fishing. People go fishing on their private boats at the private launch. So it's we pray for good weather. We turn our pajamas inside out all the time. And last year we didn't get open until April, but I remember March of last year saying, man, it's 70 degrees. Like I wish we were already open. And this year getting open earlier we've been blessed with good weather. And that's something that we pray for all the time.
I remember seeing, I want to say it was probably February of last year, like when I first noticed the Facebook page pop up. Mm-hmm. I think you had created it. It's like coming soon to the new Oregon Inlet Fishing Center. Of course, me and my line of work, my radar goes off a little bit. And then it's like I walked in and just met you, saw how beautiful the place was. We talked for a little bit, went over some things. It seemed like anybody that came in there really had nothing but great things to say. When they were leaving, they were walking out there being like, wow, okay, yes, this is amazing.
I know all the mistakes we've made. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt.
But the thing is like, it's like my mom always told me when I used to be a choir boy at church.
Right.
Okay, if I made a mistake as a choir boy up in the choir loft at church, nobody really knew it except for me. If I drew attention to it, that's when people realized it. So if there were mistakes made by you gentlemen behind the lines, we didn't none know it. Everything I ever had there was great.
Wait, I got fired 4 times last year for those mistakes.
That's part of family business, from what I understand.
This is true.
You're fired, and then you're listen. I tried to help my dad one time work on boats, and he fired me twice. He's like, "Nope, you're rehired. You're not going home yet." So I get it.
We threw a lot of darts at the board in the beginning, and I think we did a good job of hitting the board. And you never really get a bullseye in this business as if you're critical of yourself like we are.
Right.
But I think this year we're off on a great foot, and I think we learned a lot about who we are as a restaurant and what we do. And the great thing about being a small little restaurant with 100-something seats is that we get to go out in the dining room and talk to people. And, you can't really hide there from us or from anybody. So,
and you get feedback, and you're able to use that feedback.
That first person feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to listen.
You have to listen.
You have to listen to people. It's not about us. It's about the people that come through that door. And when you come through the door of the restaurant, you're right there talking to the bartender already. You're talking to somebody. A chef I used to work for back in Virginia, Patrick O'Connell, he always likened the restaurant to a show, a Broadway show. And it was from the moment the customer is there to the time they leave, and even after, you have to put on a show for them. And it has to be authentic, but it has to be hospitality minded.
Oh, yes.
And, I think we're big on that. And I love, training our staff and working with our staff to enhance that experience, because here is so unique. Your customers, you're waiting for them to come back next year. And, one thing that was, that I tried to swing for was from the very beginning was to also satisfy the locals, because, if the captain's there and the mate's there and the locals aren't behind you, well, they're who sends you business.
A lot of it. Yes.
Yeah. So, it's a tightrope to walk where you have to, keep 2 very different demographics happy. Your visitors that are only here for 5 days out of the year and then they're gone. You have to have a lasting impression with them, and you have to have the support from the local community as well. So that can be hard to achieve sometimes. The balance of that, and but
I feel like you've done a good job at it, though.
I hope so.
Not even gonna lie.
We try. I mean, that's one thing that we won't give up on. And is the hospitality aspect of the thing, and that's what I think we're really about that, and it
hides a lot of mistakes.
yeah. I mean, you just have to treat somebody like they're coming into your home, and if you treat people right and you make it a special experience for them, you got a customer for life, and you need those. You need your customers. It can't be all about what you want to do as a chef or an owner or whatever. So we've been very lucky that so many new people have found us. We've been very thankful for all the support from local businesses that send people our way and recommend us. So that's the biggest compliment in the world, is when a customer returns or when somebody else recommends you, because my recommendation list is different than somebody else's recommendation list, and I take who I recommend people to pretty seriously, and I think everybody does. And if somebody recommends us, that means a lot. That means a lot. When I hear, somebody from the bookstore in Manio sent us 3 customers in a week, and it's like,
well,
wow.
I remember one of our county commissioners actually giving y'all a shout out
At the town meeting,
at the
yeah.
commissioner meeting.
Yeah,
I
I was
remember
like-
watching and being like, "Oh, Rob Ross gave somebody a compliment."
And I remember the
It's the
evening.
first time in history.
I
No,
remember the
kidding.
evening
Totally
he
kidding,
came
Rob.
in. Yeah.
Totally, I know Rob. I can mess like that. No, he's first class, and I mean, he was like, I want to shout out to the sea chef at Oregon Inlet, and I mean, he had nothing but great things to say. He's a great dude. So that's complimentary in itself. But like one thing I've always kind of told people is, I used to help my buddy Mike at Carolina Barbecue. I still help him from time to time right here in Manio. He's one of my best friends, but I tell people all the time that come in there, like, because it's like you said, it's a show. So like, I like to ham
I
it up
went
with
there because
everybody.
of you.
Oh God.
You know that I get your recommendation, and I went there. You know,
Well, you want people when they go home from their vacation, their buddies that are coming down the next week,
Right.
to be like, yo, you want to be top of mind for them. They're like, hey, man, where do I need to go when I get there? You want to be, restaurant wise, you got to stop in, you got to go by Sea Chef at Oregon Inlet. Of course, go fish, do all that stuff. But before you leave Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, you need to go to Sea Chef and get something to eat.
you know what I tell people when they're
Tell
done.
Mac I sent you. That's
when they're done eating with me, this is what I say to everybody. I said, if you're headed back north to go up the beach, drive over the Oregon Inlet Bridge.
You got to
if-
get across the bridge before you leave.
and just see it.
Yeah.
Because even if you come to Oregon Inlet Fishing Center, you didn't eat with us. I want you to come down and see Oregon Inlet.
Right.
And next time you might stop in a restaurant, and I'd be grateful for that. But for me, you have to come and see Oregon Inlet, and you have to kind of take a second and see what the Outer Banks looks like, where there's not a lot of houses and, it's just all nature around it. And I would give that recommendation to anybody, to even if I wasn't there. Even if I didn't have a restaurant there, I'd say you need to go down to Oregon Inlet Fishing Center.
You'd have to be dead not to go across that bridge and it do something to you when you
Just
see,
look
when
at-
you
just
see the
look at
ocean
the
on one
inlet,
side,
yeah.
the inlet, and the sound on the other, and you're like,
It's captivating.
Okay, yeah, you're like, okay, I get it.
It's-
It's just a beautiful part of the world. One of in the entire world.
Right.
You look at the show, the Americas that came out. The
on the-
series. The very first shot in the series is the point there at Oregon Inlet. I mean, as far as
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh,
One of the
wow.
shots- one of the shots is to see that as
It's
just-
such a raw area, it's just
cool, and we tell people all the time, come experience that as part of this whole thing.
Right.
And I think that's what we're trying to achieve each season that we're going to be lucky enough to do this.
Right. Well, I was looking at your website, and of course, it's very beautifully laid out website, seachefouterbanks.com. And of course, when you first get there, there's a little pop-up right now that talks about the pig picking and the oyster roast coming up at the end of April. Is that right? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a first official collaboration between Sea Chef Dockside Kitchen and Savage Inlet Oysters. So Bobby's got some select oysters set aside for us. I think about 2,400 oysters that are kind of in a separate plot for this event. He's going to bring those up to the deck where he's going to be steaming them for all you can eat oysters. We're going to be doing
Look at that guy.
a couple of whole hogs. We do them nice and crispy. Yeah, you see the skin on that
You
pig
see
there.
these pictures are online at seachefouterbanks.com, by the way.
Yeah, we have tickets for sale for this event. So there's going to be live music, all you can eat oysters, whole hog barbecue.
Open bar.
Open bar.
Bar outside.
The bar will be open.
Yeah,
Redact
bar's
that.
open. Got it.
His eyes got
All right.
around his saucers.
Cut that one. Edit. Yeah.
Not
The bar
open
will be open.
Right.
There we go.
For drinks. We'll have some drink specials as well.
Okay.
A little satellite bar outside. Brian Campbell's going to be there doing music.
Oh, very cool.
Lots of sides. Just the thing about us when we do events and catering, and I think food in general, is I think everybody always gets a little bit more than they bargained for. And we, especially my dad, he always goes over the top with everything. So
Under promise, over deliver.
right.
Hey,
So,
hey,
beautiful.
Beautiful. It's better than the other way around.
I hope. Something.
No.
So
That's-
yeah, we're gonna have quite the spread out there on the deck. Praying for good weather as always, and
This is going to be what? Sunday, April 27th?
that's the last Sunday in April.
Okay.
Kind of kick off the season a little bit, and hopefully this is something that we do on the regular.
Yeah.
And one thing one thing about the fishing center and our vision for this whole thing was it is an event site, and there's all kinds of possibilities for doing stuff like this. There's a private room upstairs at the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center that we've done rehearsal dinners.
Beautiful views.
We've done, good. You can see the ocean to the inlet to the sound to Wanchese to Body Lighthouse.
Wanchese. I want that.
All the
My view.
way, all the way from one without moving your feet. I mean, there's nowhere else in the Outer Banks that offers a view like that. It's spectacular. So we do luncheons up there, rehearsal dinners, all kinds of stuff. But we're just kind of getting into this ticketed event idea. We did a Valentine's Day dinner in February. You know, a 5-course French menu with like Lux wine pairing, you know, service, crystal, all the whole 9 yards.
Right.
And then, you know, I've got a couple more ideas brewing. But this is one we've wanted to do for a while here, is do the oyster roast and a pig.
Okay.
And let everybody kind of come and hang out and stuff themselves silly and dance a little bit, drink a little bit, and have a good time.
AYCE. Now that means
all you can eat.
All you can eat.
That's right.
So I mean, I could just eat the whole. I could just load up on all the barbecue I want.
Come on.
And the oysters.
But you got to buy a drink.
You got to buy a drink. Got to buy a drink. But hey, look,
because that bar ain't open.
Make sure you buy your drink. Don't go up there and look. You didn't hear it here. Tickets, $60.
That's right. Yeah, $60 even. That's tax included.
Okay.
We have kids tickets available for the youngins.
Okay.
So that they can come along as well. It's going to be
kids are 25.
Family friendly event, and it should be a wonderful time. I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. My staff's really looking forward to it. There's a couple of events like this that we're just kind of slowly adding to the calendar. You know, we do Ships and Suites.
Yes.
At the end of the year in October for Halloween. Everything's just kind of growing there, and you know, it's so new that we have the opportunity to find out which of these events work. And I could see in a couple of years here, you know, having a regular calendar of all these things that it's like, you know, every year Sea Chef in Oregon Inlet does this, and we always go to that. Everything becomes part of people's routine, whether they're on vacation or not. There's certain things that you look
put
forward
their vacation around these things.
Right. Yeah, and that's really what the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center is. We're a part of that.
Right.
That's, you know, it's kind of like that idea that it's, you know, it's eat, fish, shop, you know, as a total project. You know, that you're coming there as a destination. That's what we want to create with that, and these kind of events are going to help get that off the ground and make that a total experience, and say this is where you come for these kind of experiences. And the fishing center is the experience,
right?
With that, we're a part of it.
Amen. Absolutely. Well, your website, like I said, you can get more information online, seachefouterbanks.com. Of course, we're here at Outer Banks this week. We're going to create a marketing interface for you guys. It's going to be absolutely stunning and beautiful to help drive some more traffic that direction. And, of course, this podcast is, designed to help bring more people in the door. So hopefully that's what we're successful
I hope
in all of our
people can kind of hear the story. We used to have it on the back of the menu, but we made a little more room on the menu, and that was the first thing to go. But,
well,
you know, I think people are interested in hearing, you know, who we are and our mission for the restaurant. So hopefully, if you're listening to this, you get a better sense of our goals, and you come and see us. And if you're interested in buying tickets for the oyster roast at Oregon Inlet, get them now, because I'm sure they'll sell out.
Yes,
you know, we're already working towards that, and there's no doubt we're about a month away, and they will sell out at some point.
Right. Absolutely. Well, again, seachefouterbanks.com is where you can find them online. Gentlemen, I appreciate y'all coming in today. Any shout outs that we want to give to anybody? Anybody? Wives?
Yeah.
Kids?
They're the wives and the kids. They are the ones that make it work, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our staff too. I mean, they're just, they're so crucial to our success. With that, so you know, we look forward to a great season with them, and the patience of the families. And you know what the cool thing about it is, you know, I never ran a family oriented restaurant just because of what we were and where we were, and really this is what we're kind of creating here. It is a family restaurant that, you know, that both from customers, kids coming in, and it's very kid friendly. To the idea that I told Mac, I said, you want to be able to raise your family and have a business at the same time, and that's why you came to the Outer Banks. That's why you came here. That's why you decided not to stay in New York or work in Washington or whatever. That you wanted to have that balance, and I do think that this. Everybody that I've met here, and there's such a great sense of family and community that it makes that possible.
Right.
With that, and everybody said to us, like, "Why are you closed Sundays? We wish you're open Sunday." I said, "Well, you need a family. Everybody needs a family day. I never did that in my career. I never did that. I said, you know what?
You have to make the time to go to church, and you have to make the time to be with your family and the staff too.
With that. So I think that's it's changed the way I look at things. With that, and maybe just because I'm getting old. But
and nobody blinks an eye when my two daughters are running around the restaurant.
Right, exactly.
It's not like what are the kids doing here kind of thing.
Y'all really have embraced the culture here.
Yeah, I think so.
Taking the Sundays off. You said church. That's me. I'm in church on Sunday. That's beautiful.
It's neither of us are here to be apart from any of that.
No,
it's like. He's come a long way. I've converted him a little bit.
Oh yeah.
You think about it, he's been in the city for 40 something years.
The hardest thing I had to learn here,
he can talk to anybody,
was having people be nice to you.
The hardest thing you had to learn?
Going to the store and somebody saying hello.
Oh wow.
I
feel like I say hey to everybody.
Right.
But that's just not normal in a lot of other places in the country. You don't walk down the street and see the same people every day. And they know him. They know him all up and down the beach.
Oh, they think I'm crazy, but that's okay.
Yeah,
that's
the guy. Last year, the guy in the at the Ace Hardware.
Okay.
I said I was picking up something from Mac, and he said, "Do you want to charge us to the account?" I said, "Yeah, sea chef." And he goes, "Oh, you're the guy that's cooking that crazy fish." I go, "No, that's my son.
That's my son.
That's not me." But it's like, go figure. I lived in an area where you basically didn't know your neighbors for the most part, or you never talked to anybody,
man.
and it has been a giant conversion for me, and now when I get to talk to guests, I listen. I just get to I open the door and I want to learn everything about them and what they have to say, and it's all of a sudden you realize that you can get pretty fulfilled, learning and listening, from people as opposed to not interacting, with that. And that's what I look forward to every day. And like, there's sometimes where he goes, "You need to get back to work." But no, I love being the ambassador.
There you go. It's beautiful.
For that.
That's beautiful. I just had something hit me a second ago. I just, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Okay. Just kind of on the whim. Okay. Father, son, working in the same kitchen, day in, day out for the most part. Any interesting little tips y'all have ever gotten in that you care to discuss? No,
we end every day with a hug and we write in a journal.
It's a long way to get there, though. It's a long 14 hours before you get to that. You know what? The way I always put it was this: is okay. You start the day at 0. Okay, if you're lucky, you go up a degree or two, or you might go down a degree or two. And, you just kind of measure that throughout the day. But the goal is, if you can get back to 0 by the end of the day, you've had a good day.
Had a good day.
With that,
Okay.
And when we used to fish together with everybody, we say, we
try to kill each other.
My other son, Alex used to say, he goes, "It doesn't matter as long as we're friends when we get back to the dock."
Hey. Yeah.
So
it's a high pressure environment. I mean, I take family out of the whole thing. I mean, you're in a submarine with other people all day long.
Right.
And again, we are so blessed to have a great staff, and especially in a seasonal restaurant, to come back and work with us. And the first thing I tell people when I hire them, I say, I'm a little crazy. My dad's insane. So just, be like a reed in the wind and, bend, but don't break. And I think the same thing applies to your relationship, working together, father and son. It's like, it's going to bend at some times, but that's working closely with anybody.
Right.
At least we can't stay mad at each other,
Oh Oh, yes, we can.
But yeah,
You have time?
Well, guys, hey, look, I appreciate you guys coming in. A little taste of what Sea Chef has to offer, and just hearing that how much y'all have embraced the culture of the Outer Banks and you're implementing it into your daily dishes is absolutely phenomenal. I encourage anybody to go down there to experience Oregon Inlet as a whole, but make sure that they also stop in, grab a bite, have a seat on the deck, watch the boats come and go, enjoy the atmosphere, have a drink, have something to eat, and just take it all in like that, you know?
sounds good to me.
You guys, I mean, I love having a father-son in here. I think it's the first time I've had like a father-son combo in here like this on the show. So it's been a lot of fun having you guys in here, and I really appreciate it. So SeaChefOuterBanks.com for people that want more information, look at the menus, talk about maybe, I know you got like a private event section there for anybody who wants any type of caterings done. And, a little merch section too. You can go get you some merch, and don't forget about the pig picking coming up at the end of April. So, gentlemen, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate y'all coming in today.
Thank you so much, Justin.
You've made it to the beach. Getting there is one thing, but setting up your things is another. That's where Just for the Beach Rentals comes in. Whether it be a setup or a drop-off, Just for the Beach Rentals provides quality rentals, timely deliveries, and friendly service from Nags Head to Corolla. They have a huge inventory of chairs, umbrellas, kayaks, surfboards, stand-up paddleboards, a wide range of bikes, and even baby stuff. To see their setup packages for your oceanfront or non-oceanfront service, go online to justforthebeach.com.
All right. Yes. All the things you need for the beach at Just for the Beach. All right. We're going to take a look at some events, and we're going to really just kind of skim over these very quickly. Everything that I'm going to talk about, though, you can find online at outerbanksthisweek.com. Click on the events tab, and you can find them all right there. Now, Taste of the Beach is going on this coming weekend. There's a whole list at obxtasteofthebeach.com of places you can go, tickets you can buy, where you can enjoy some great food. That's something to be looking at for sure. Oh, let's see. Performance Food Service. They're having looks like they're having a food show at Outer Banks Brewing Station coming up. Gosh, there's so much stuff. This entire month is packed full of things to do. So again, just real quick skim of some of the heavy hitters. The 7th annual Lost Colony Wine and Beer Festival. Is that what's coming up? Yes, it is. Wine and Culinary Festival. Let me rephrase that. That is actually coming up on Saturday, April 12th from 2 to 5 at the Lost Colony at the north end of Manteo, the actual Lost Colony outdoor drama where that's held. That's where that's happening. Wine, food, music, Old World and New World wines from around the globe will be poured, accompanied by local fares served with warm island southern hospitality. Enjoy breathtaking coastal views and engaging rhythms and smooth vocals from 2 stages set against the backdrop of the Roanoke Sound. Don't ask me why I just tried to do the imitation of probably the worst British accent you've ever heard. But hey, look, that's coming up at the April 12th, Saturday, April 12th from 2 to 5. But hey, it's also marathon weekend. You got the Flying Pirate Half Marathon going on that weekend as well. It's on Saturday, and I believe also, well, no, it looks like it's just Saturday. Okay. I thought it was an entire weekend. I apologize. But hey, those are just a few of the things that are coming up in the very near future. Of course, you heard Chef Jeff and Mac Buben talking about what's going on. Let me pull that up real quick and just kind of give that a quick little mention. Sea Chef Dockside Kitchen online, SeaChefOuterBanks.com. Let's see. Boom, there it is. April 27th, 1 o'clock at the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center is the Pig Picking and Oyster Roast. And that's being put on by Sea Chef and Savage Inlet Oysters. You can buy your tickets, but don't waste time, as they were saying. Like, I think they're already halfway gone. So you need to get your tickets now. $60, all you can eat. And it's not open bar. The bar will be open, but it's not open bar. Again, go to SeaChefOuterBanks.com and you can buy your tickets. It'll pop right up as soon as you log onto their website. It'll pop right up. All right, that's going to do it for me on this episode of the Outer Banks This Week podcast, episode 109. Next week, hey, taking the show on the road, going to Rundown Cafe. Ha, 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 ha. They used to have a commercial years ago. It's like, how do you create Rundown Cafe? It was a Jamaican gentleman, and he was like, first you take a coconut, then you add some little clear liquid, and that's how you create Rundown Cafe. But hey, Rundown Cafe in Kitty Hawk. Haven't been there in a while, and I'm really excited to go. Very excited to go. So that's something that I'm going to be on the road with next week. But this is going to wrap up. I appreciate Jeff and Mac Buben for coming in to talk about Sea Chef Dockside Kitchen and the Oregon Inlet Fishing Center. They really gave them a nice plug down there, so I appreciate them coming in. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Outer Banks This Week podcast, episode 109, all brought to you by Outer Banks Pest Control and Kelly's Automotive in Manio. Again, online at outerbanks-pestcontrol.com and also online at kellysobxauto.com. All right, I'm out of here. Have yourself a great and wonderful rest of the week, and I'll see y'all again next week. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.
This has been another radical edition of the Outer Banks This Week podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, follow us on social media, and listen every Thursday for a new episode.